those people that are working at home. So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our collective worship for today. I hope you've all had a good morning and enjoyed. I know in year 5 and 4 they were doing a no device day or screen-free day, or as much as you can. So hopefully you've been enjoying doing that. So on with our collective worship for today. So this week so far, we've been looking at this idea of hope. And yesterday we looked at something different. But today we're going to be thinking about another idea, and it's also about thinking about other people a little bit more as well. So what I'd start with is by sharing the screen. So I'll share the screen. But what I also need to do is make sure you can hear the sound. That's it. Right. So we'll start our collective worship as we always do with lighting of the 3 candles. So we light these candles in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. So in today's collective worship, we'll be thinking about something a little bit different. We're going to be thinking about the idea of compassion and what compassion means. And the idea is we're going to start to get you to think about what it is to be compassionate and why is it important. So hopefully by the end of it, we'll have a bit more of a better understanding about what compassionate is, and more importantly, what it may look like in action, I guess. So the first thing obviously to think about is, what does the word compassion mean? So if we start by looking it up in the dictionary, it's obviously sympathetic pity. Hold on, we can see that. And concern the sufferings and misfortunes of others. So that's what compassion means. Feeling compassionate for another person's pain is what it is about. But also, there's something called self-compassion. And this is about, obviously, making sure you're looking after yourself and helping yourself. Because obviously, if you're not in a happy place, trying to help somebody else is really difficult. So it's obviously making sure that you're kind to yourself as well as other people as well, because sometimes we have things going on in our heads, and you call yourself and you're not very kind to yourself, and being kind to yourself just makes you feel a little bit better about yourself and more prepared and equipped when it comes to managing and sort of being able to be sympathetic and compassionate to other people. So obviously it's quite important that we operate, or we exercise self-compassion, because it helps us to look after ourselves, and also being compassionate to other people is not just about making sure that you're picking them up if they've fallen over, because that's really good and really helpful, but it's also thinking about supporting them with maybe mental or emotional pain that they may be suffering. So they might be sad or upset or angry or cross, and we can do things to show compassion for them. So that was what compassion means, but how do we actually show it? So there's lots of different ways we can show compassion, and what we've talked about before, it could be about being sensitive to other people's emotions and suffering. So it could be the fact that somebody is upset and crying and you don't know why, and it's about being compassionate to them. And it's about also feeling for other people. So obviously sometimes, when you see somebody sad, you can feel, because you too have felt sad at one point or another. So you can feel what it would be like to find it difficult. And sometimes when, say, you're coming into school and you don't want to come into school, there's somebody that would have felt like that before, and they come over and help you in. And I saw that the other day when we were lining up here. A child was in year 4 was looking a bit sad about coming in, and another child from year 4 came over to him, put his arm around him and said, "Come on, it'll be okay, we can go on in, let's go in together. I'm like this sometimes." And that's what it is about, to feel for other people. And sometimes we show compassion to prevent other people from suffering. So we can try and do things to help them from being in a position of sadness. Sometimes when we want to prevent them from suffering, we can try and make them laugh or do something that they like. And that's also, compassion is this idea that we want to end another person's suffering. So we want to do something to stop it. So we want to make them feel better. We can take them, they're sat on their own, they're all lonely and upset. Maybe they can come and play with us. Compassion is also being helpful to others. So if, for example, somebody's fallen over, you can pick them up, warmth and kindness and caring and being kind is all part of this idea of compassion. And then when I was thinking about compassion, I was reminded today when I was talking to Mrs. Robb, who's working in year 6 at the moment, and we were out at playtime, and they were all the year 6s were out playing a big game of Bulldog together, and the teachers were and the adults in the classroom were helping, were sort of joining in with the game. And then we were talking, and she said, "Oh, last week when I was in there, I tripped over and fell over, and I really hurt myself, and I hurt my knee and things like that." And she said the children came over and they were making sure that she was okay and checking that she was okay, and sat with her to make sure that she felt okay after falling over. And I guess that's what we really, if we think about what does compassion look like, then that is compassion in action, really. And it's nice that we've already got it. You know, lots of us show it on a daily basis. But with that in mind, if that is the case of what it is to be compassionate, what does it look like, or what happens when we're not? And it could be that we don't act compassionately when we don't care for other people, or are acting selfishly, or not notice other people's feelings. And sometimes we might even be the cause of other people's suffering. And obviously other things that we can be is unkind and unhelpful towards others. And this is what happens when we're not. And it's quite good to know the difference, because sometimes we may be doing this, not being very compassionate, because we're unaware of what's going on, and we're unaware that we're behaving in that way. But it's quite important that we are aware that you're not being compassionate at that time. And, you know, it's helpful for other people to actually maybe point that out, but in a nice way. Say, you know, you're not really very compassionate towards us. You know, you're being selfish, but in a nice way. So this is what can happen when you're not being compassionate. So with that in mind, I thought to myself, you know, there are lots of ways that we can do it. And as we can see here, what does being compassionate look like? And we talked about it, and it could be, for example, if we look at number 1, children and adults might show compassion to somebody else by helping and comforting them, or listening to them when they're upset. Sometimes we can show compassion by the jobs that we do. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday about people who we respect. And we looked at these sorts of people that are out there, and their profession involves them having to be compassionate and showing compassion towards other people. And their main role is to try and end or help people suffering or upset. And obviously other ways we can do it is by being compassionate by the things that we do, such as giving money for charities. Like when we do our dress up days, when we have like last term, you may remember that far back, we were doing Children in Need. You know, when we all come up dressed in and we dress up in our fancy dress, and we wear our funny clothes, and we bring in and donate money to these charities, this is us showing that compassion. And it can be these situations that highlight compassion in others as well. So this is what it can be done and help us to know what it looks like. And again, we talk about this idea that who shows compassion. And it could be the nurse, and it could be a paramedic, charity worker, and people who look after old people. All of these people show compassion in the jobs that they do. And even as teachers ourselves, we show a lot of compassion when we see that children aren't, are maybe finding a piece of work difficult. At the moment, your teachers are busy online all day long, feeding back to you with the things that you've done, and giving you praise for the things that you've done, giving you support on how to improve on the things that you've done, giving you support on how to upload things and try and do the best that you can with your remote learning. And again, all of those things shows a lot of compassion. So what I thought I would do before I finish, and I'm going to really put it out there and see if I can get it to work, is I thought it would be a nice opportunity to show, it may be a little bit babyish for some of you, but I just wanted to show you a video of what compassion looks like, because what you may find is actually, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm not sure if I'm very compassionate at all, but hopefully this video will give you an idea about how simple things can show that you are compassionate. Okay, hopefully it's going to work.
The Homeless Man. One day, Yaya was walking with his mum after picking him up from school. As they were walking down the path, they saw a homeless man of about 40 years old. He was sitting on the sidewalk with a puppy sleeping on his lap. Several seconds after they walked past him, Yaya stopped and asked his mum, "Mum, is he hungry? Can we buy him and the puppy something to eat?" Yaya's mum felt compassion and empathy and told Yaya, "Sure, why not?" Then they walked together to a sandwich restaurant that was a couple of blocks away and bought 2 sandwiches and walked back to where we saw the man and his puppy and gave him those sandwiches, and he gave one of those sandwiches to his puppy. He was very grateful and said, "Thank you very much, kind people. God will surely reward you." Yaya and his mum then left. They were living a couple of miles away. After getting home that very day, Yaya asked the mum, "Mum, can we make extra dinner tomorrow?" "Why, Yaya?" Mummy asked. He then told his mum that he wanted to give some to the homeless man and his puppy so that they wouldn't be hungry. Yaya's mum was so touched by his request that she quickly replied yes. However, the next day, Yaya got to that same place he saw the homeless man and his puppy, but this time around, he didn't see them. They were gone. After school, Yaya's mum came to pick him up, but she noticed that Yaya was very sad and unhappy. "Yaya, why are you sad? What happened, sweetie? Is everything okay?" Yaya's mum asked. Yaya then replied, "Mum, I got to that spot we saw the man and his puppy, but I didn't see them," he said sadly. Yaya's mum then smiled and said, "Even though we weren't able to give them the food we made, I am so proud of you." Yaya was only 4 years old, and that was the first time he asked his mum to buy him something, and what he asked for was meant for the stranger and his puppy. Yaya has never asked his mum to buy toys or video games, because he knows his mum doesn't make much money. At a very young age, Yaya was filled with compassion and empathy. Yaya's mum, being a single mother, always worried about raising her son well, but now she believes Yaya will grow up to be a great man someday. Moral lesson: we all have to show compassion to one another. We get the rewards of our helpful acts in return. If we grow with compassion and empathy, the world will be a better place.
So I'll just move on to the next video. So that was in the video there, really shows you that even at a young age you can show compassion for another people, and it can be in any way that you show that. It can be displayed in lots of different ways. And so what I want you to do for a moment is close your eyes and have a reflection, and we'll have some reflection on this idea of being compassionate. And one of the things that in the video he talked about was the fact that it was obviously giving kindness and compassion, we will get it in return. And with that in mind, I want you to think about what it is to be kind to one another and show compassion. Think about what it is to treat others the way that you want to be treated. And most importantly, when you're at home, or even if you're at school, or when you go back later after school, think about what it is that you could do today to show more compassion. Whilst you're thinking about that, we'll just finish off. And I'll just stop sharing for a moment. And so, yeah, so that's the idea of today's assembly, which was about compassion. Thinking about what it is you can do to show compassion to other people and what that means. Maybe it's something you've already done today. Maybe it's something you've helped with, it's something that you can celebrate. Or maybe it's something you can think about when you move away from our collective worship and for the rest of the day. So that's our collective worship for today. I hope you enjoyed it, thinking about compassion. I'll be back tomorrow with another collective worship. and we'll be thinking about another idea to try and help us feel happy inside, because sometimes doing good things makes us feel happy. So thank you very much. Goodbye from me. I shall see you back tomorrow, and take care, everyone, and have a good afternoon. Bye.